Hi, welcome. It's a CaddyInfo Cadillac chat. We do these on Thursday nights? This is season 4 for the chat. I don't think we're going to have any special guests tonight. I wanted to briefly mention that we did get some of the sites had picked up the order guide and said, well, look, there's some changes in 2017 for the ATS. And so I was happy to see that Cadillac has finally dropped the 2.5 liter normally aspirated 4-cylinder. If you actually wanted to buy the least expensive ATS, what you could do is you could go get what they call the standard model that just had the normally aspirated 202 horsepower 4, and that cost the least. It was $33,000. But if you went up to the 2-liter turbo, then that was $36,000. So what they're doing is they're going to get rid of the normally aspirated 4, the 2.5 liter, start with the 2-liter turbo, just as they do in the coupe. In 2016, the sedan, you could get the normally aspirated 4-cylinder, or you could get the 2-liter turbo, or the 3.6 liter, or the twin turbo. But in the coupe, they just started with the 2-liter turbo. But now they're going to do the same thing with the sedan. They're getting rid of the 2.5 liter. So now you'd be able to get the 2-liter turbo starting at $35. So it's a little more expensive than the starting price before, but you get a lot more car for that, because the 272 horsepower 2-liter turbo is a much nicer engine than the 2.5 liter normally aspirated 202 horsepower power plant, which should never have been in the ATS to begin with, in my opinion. I actually, for the ATS, would have equipped it with the 2-liter turbo and made it less expensive than the normally aspirated 4 all at the same time, because the sales have not been great for the ATS, and that would be a way to kind of prompt sales. And then after you get sales up a little bit, then you can get the prices back up. Now, all that said, Cadillac played around a little bit with the naming conventions, because it came out with a new set of naming conventions for the CT6. So when you go to order a Cadillac, of course, if you want to order an ATS or a CT6, but then there are different levels of standard equipment. So there's a luxury package. What Cadillac was saying before, originally years ago, they would call the base model the base model. But then one of the marketing guys said, well, there is no base Cadillac, because Cadillac's not base. And so they changed it to the standard model. They asked all the salespeople to say the standard model is the one, that if you just order an ATS with no additional luxury features, that's the standard model. So now they're changing that to where if you just order an ATS sedan with no additional luxury features, that's the ATS sedan model. And then if you order an ATS Coupe, then that's the ATS Coupe model. And then if you get the luxury package, well, that's the luxury model. And if you get the premium package, well, that's the premium luxury model. And so in each case, they're kind of building it up to make it more clear, to more clearly state within each of the levels exactly what you get, that they build one upon the other. And so before, you had the luxury collection, and then the performance collection or the premium collection may have included the luxury collection, or it may have included the luxury and the performance collection, but that wasn't clear to people. So they changed the luxury collection to luxury, and they changed performance collection to premium luxury, and then they changed the premium collection to premium performance. So if you want everything now, you want premium performance, because that includes performance and luxury. And the performance would be premium luxury, and luxury is just luxury. And then the standard model, instead of being called the standard model, will just be called the ATS Sedan or the ATS Coupe, or whatever it is that you're buying, the CT6, or whatever it is that you're buying. And so now you'll have the ATS Sedan, the ATS Sedan Luxury, the ATS Sedan Premium Luxury, and the ATS Sedan Premium Performance. And so ATS Sedan, Luxury, Premium Luxury, premium performance. So the premium performance will be the one that has the everything. Now, actually, what you want is the ATS V. So when you go and shop, ask them for an ATS V. But then when you ask them for an ATS V, the ATS V actually has luxury levels above just being an ATS V. And so, for instance, in my ATS V, then I also got the luxury and the driver awareness package. And so and I avoided the track performance package, which I thought originally was mandatory, but Air Mike and I sat here during one of our chats and reading through the options and discovered that it was not. Now, one of the things that Cadillac is coming out with in 2017 also is a teen driver configuration. And the idea of this is that it's you can set up your car knowing that you have a teen driver, and it encourages safe driving behavior. So it'll limit certain vehicle features, and it prevents your teen from turning off safety systems like StabiliTrak or traction control, and it gives you an in-vehicle report to tell you information about your teen's driving habits so that you can help coach your teen into correct driving behavior. We're also expecting during 2016, along with Apple Carplay, Cadillac added Android Auto, which is kind of the Android version of Apple CarPlay. The nice thing about CarPlay is I plug my iPhone into my ATS-V, and basically the Q system becomes just a user interface to the iPhone, but I can actually, pull up my contact list on the phone or pull up the music library on the phone and so on. And so it becomes a nice touchscreen interface that is easy to use while you're underway to the phone so that you can keep your eyes on the road and get to exactly what you want. There's also more audio features that I haven't gotten as much use out of as I should have yet, as I'm just still getting used to the car and so on. So you can't buy a standard Cadillac. But years ago, you could never buy a base model Cadillac anymore. Now you can't buy a standard model Cadillac anymore. You can only buy the model that you're buying. So if you go to buy a standard ATS, you'll get an ATS trim level. They also have something, following distance indicator, that is one step further toward. So my car will tell you, hey, you're following too close, but it won't tell you, hey, you're following 50 feet behind the car ahead of you. And I think that's what the new systems are going to do, is they'll actually tell you the distance between you and the next car. So all that's exciting and good, and Cadillac's moving in the right direction, and more electronics, more gadgets in the cars, and more features that you can actually use, right? Because I don't have a teenager that is in danger of driving my ATS-V, but if I did have one such, then I would certainly want features that keep them from getting in trouble because of the power of the car and so on. And that's what it sounds like this will do. I suppose in that circumstance, I could use a valet mode. And in my ATS-V, valet mode locks down so that you can't get in the glove box, you can't get in the trunk, and it takes PDR video of anytime the car is moving. So that way I could go back and review the PDR video and determine what's going on with that. Now we should see, so let's see incentives for 2017. I see our friends over at kbb.com have an article on incentives. They're going to ask my opinion first. Yeah, so they're just saying to drop the 2.5 liter 4. Prices will drop between $650 and $1,100, they think, and that's what I was saying is they looked like that they trimmed about $1,000 off. I would have gone ahead and just lowered the 2 liter to the $34,000. I'd like to see Cadillac have a $29,000 ATS with the 2 liter turbo. I think that would be an attractive package, and that's where they need to be to compete with that Mercedes, the CLA version of the Mercedes. The Cadillac actually has kind of a 2 series car coming below the ATS, we think, that might compete better in that range. But what I would do is I would have the ATS 2 liter turbo fit into that range and figure out how to make that work. But they're going to price it at $35,600. And so I would have priced it at $29,900, which may be all of their profit on the ATS. You know, I don't have insight into how much money they're actually making on ATS sales, and certainly there's no point in making them if you can't make any money on them. And I respect that Cadillac is in the game for the profit. But part of it too is that you're trying to get people into the Cadillac brand, and you're trying to get them into Cadillac so that, you know, they'll want to trade their ATS in for a CT6 or in for an ATS V, and so on. Cadillac had said last week that they sold out of the CTS Vs this year, so good for them. They took orders for about 2,000 of them. It's not that long before they'll turn over and start making the 17 CTS Vs, so it was a good time to be sold out. But I thought that that was a really good thing for them to keep up with, and to point out that they're sold out for the rest of the year. And hopefully they'll sell out of ATS Vs also as well. I think that's the big thing. I see BMW blog has a comparison of the M3 competition package and the ATS V. That M3 keeps coming out with specialized packages and then charging another arm and a leg on top of their previous specialized package for another M3 or an M4. And so I'd be shocked if BMW blog doesn't find that they like the BMW better than the ATS V. But I'll have to go through and read. And yeah, the more power, more grip. The M3 took just under 4 seconds with the DCT, double clutch transmission. And the ATS V, they must have had an ATS V manual. Yeah, they had the manual transmission, so it takes just over 4 seconds. If they'd used the automatic, it would have beaten the dual clutch BMW and been 3.7 seconds, Cadillac says. But of course, they couldn't. That wouldn't be the way that the BMW blog would run that test. And so we'll have to go through. I'll put a link to the article on the BMW blog in the CaddyInfo forum at at this week's video topic. And so yeah, they as you would expect, they like the BMW better. And and good luck to them. If that's what you like, then more power to you. I would certainly not trade my ATS V for a BMW M3 or an M4. Of course, mine is the coupe they tested versus a coupe. I wonder if the BMW M3 is not available with the stick, and that's why they measured the DCT one. I bet it may only be available with the DCT or with maybe just with the DCT in the M3. The M3 is now a sedan only because the M4 is the coupe. And then So I'll put that over for everyone to enjoy. The M3 is suffering through 20-inch tires, 20-inch wheels. The ATS Vs, of course, have 18-inch wheels because wheels weigh, and the car is all about the performance, which I guess BMW is going more for the looks there. But I will put the link over on the forum so that you can find that BMW favored comparison of the BMW and the ATS V. If you ever want to be on Cadillac Chat, of course, we love to have Cadillac owners and enthusiasts come to the CaddyInfo forum. That's what the CaddyInfo forum is there for. It's CaddyInfo.com. And when you go to CaddyInfo.com, you'll find the blog. And if you click, there's a menu at the top that you click to go to the forum. And the forum is just a place where Cadillac owners can communicate with other Cadillac owners. And if they have problems with the car, or they want to talk about the car among a group of like-minded individuals, then that's what CaddyInfo is for. And it's carefully moderated, which I think is one of the differences between CaddyInfo and some of the other sites. Is first of all, CaddyInfo is a pro Cadillac site, a fan site, and second, it's we don't allow people to just we prefer people to be opinionated but polite. And so you'll actually find maybe a more adult environment than you'll find at some of the roughhouse forums. Not that, I enjoy exercising my car. I enjoy the performance aspects of Cadillac, and certainly we welcome that type of conversation. But we don't just let people abuse each other at random, which the internet is famous for. Thank you for tuning in. As I say, if you want to be on to talk about Cadillac news, to talk about Cadillac products, to talk about your Cadillac, we do these on Thursday nights at 7:30 Central Time, 8:30 Eastern Time, 5:30 Pacific Time here on Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts isn't hard to learn to use, but I would be happy to help you learn to use Google Hangouts. And there are multiple ways for you to participate. You don't have to have a video camera and headphones. A headset is what I use, but you don't have to have that. You can actually participate just with the phone, and you can actually participate just over text if you chose to. And that's easy enough to do and easy enough to learn. You can participate via the Hangouts, where you just send Q&A text questions, or there's actually a way to log into the chat where you do text questions as well. So I hope you're enjoying your Cadillacs out there as much as I'm enjoying my Cadillac. I hope you'll come participate with us on the CaddyInfo forums. Have a good week. See you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.